Hey guys, welcome back, and we've got another build for Wildspeaker this time. So with Wildspeaker, there's a couple of routes that you could take, but considering that we get 100 suppression, I figured it would be fun to make a build that is basically untouchable, right? So as you can see over here, we have 75 spell dodge, 65 spell block, 65 block chance, and a good chunk of evasion as well. So this build basically cannot be hit. Of course, you still will be hit from time to time, right? Not that often. But of course, scaling damage with this was a little bit hard. So I figured I'm just gonna go bleed. And, well, since we are on this side of the tree, I could go with daggers and Nightblade and all that. So I decided to go with Puncture of Shanking. So this one gives us 100% chance to bleed, basically, and more bleeding damage. So we don't really need to worry about bleed chance either. And the biggest downside of this skill is that it has basically no clear. That's why while mapping, you're probably gonna need to use Ancestral Call instead of like Brutality. And also, since we're using Marilyn, it's very hard to cap crit on this build at the very least. So you will need to use ambush. As you can see, without ambush, our crit is basically 50%, and we can't really have that because, well, we're going to be dealing no damage, right? So against bosses, you will use ambush, and it's perfectly fine because it's usually just one hit and the boss should die. It's, well, the bleed DPS is like 10 million. Well, best bleed DPS. We are using volatility and there's Latha, so there's some variance, right? But against bosses, most of the time, one hit should be enough. But of course, we have ambush on 5-second cooldown and with second wind as well, so you can technically, hit it like 2 or 3 times and the boss should be dead. So against bosses, it's not a big deal. The biggest problem is mapping. And for mapping, since you're not going to be able to use ambush all the time, because, well, the pack might be, let's say, 10 mobs, and use ambush and you hit 2, because we have +1 strike from gloves, right? So you hit 2 enemies and we don't have anything for AoE other than that, so that's why I'm recommending Ancestral Call. We'll just have it on hot swap and map with Ancestral Call. And also, sadly, you will also need to change this into Ungil's Harmony. As you can see, our damage drops by half, but we have 100% crit chance, which means that we're going to be doing bleeds on every single, well, good bleeds on every single hit without having to use ambush. So, there's this little issue that you're going to need to overcome if you want to play this build. But if you kind of just want to one-shot bosses, this could be an option. So, use Ungil's Harmony while mapping, as well as Ancestral Call. But let's go over the tree. So, to make this whole thing work, where you have basically, just infinite defenses, you do need to pass towards this versatile combatant, and you need to cap your block chance. So, these block nodes and these block nodes, and you're pretty much good. You do need a shield with a little bit of chance to block. So with 41%, it's fine. You can obviously get a little bit more than that, but this is probably what you should be aiming for unless you want to spend some more skill points, right? So make sure that you, if you're going to play this, make sure that you cap your block chance with this as well as this. And of course, don't forget to take acrobatics. Since we're getting 100 spell suppression, we don't really need to invest into spell suppression that much. I don't have a single passive point. I do have some items with spell suppression, 14 over here, as well as, well, that's it, 14 over here and 8 from the implicit, from the Ether implicit. You can also get it on body armor, but you know, you should probably prioritize evasion rating over here, so getting spell suppression on it as well might be a little bit more rough, but it's not a big deal. You can either spend 1 point or just have a pretty good roll on the gloves, right? You know, alternatively, just spend 1 point over here and you're gonna be good. Now, there's another issue with this build, is that our mana, while we do have a good amount of base mana, which is going to be plenty for bossing, while mapping, you might be running out. So consider getting these 2 points. We don't have much base damage, but you know, it's still going to be enough to just kind of have you being topped off on mana. And other than that, you know, this tree is just, I don't know, it's self-explanatory, right? If you played like a perfect Agony build, it's like very similar. Well, unless you weren't going for daggers, right? But I mean, this build technically also has elusive as well, so there's like a bunch of other stuff that we get from the Ascendancies, right? Like we have Aspect of the Cat, which is alternating for some crit and attack damage. So you know, there's a little bit more buffs that are coming into play. But of course, we want this Primal Instinct as well as Fearful Symmetry, and then of course Aspect of the Cat as well. And lastly, for your, you know, 4th point, you can probably just get Great Wolf Skull, which is 8% more action speed. I guess it's nice, but you know, it's nothing too crazy, because everything else is kind of not really good for us. Technically, you could go for Aspect of the Avian if you want, but you know, it's up to you. Either Aspect of the Avian or just get 8 action speed. Up to you, really. So I have spell suppression in here to simulate these. These are the only, well, this is pretty much the only thing that we're getting, right? And I have sovereignty on here from the Anoint. You don't need it, but you know, it gives a little bit of aura effect, which for us is damage from both malevolence and pride, and also a little bit of evasion, right? So you will be needing to you will need to use Enduring Cry for endurance charges. You know, just a little bit more defenses over here. And of course, one other thing that's not calculated in here is that we can aggravate bleeds. So after your initial hit with ambush, you should continue hitting the target a couple of more times so you can aggravate the bleed. And since we're using Tempest Rising, I figured we can use Venal Puncture, so the enemies are also chilled. And this way we just basically make them move, you know, against bosses, against stationary bosses, for example. So the bosses are moving, although it is only 4-second duration and our bleed is longer. So once the chill runs out, you will need to reapply it to get the aggravate again. But you know, it should be fine, because the boss is very likely just dead after the first hit, after waiting like 4 seconds. And we do have a pretty good amount of life. I am using a little bit of it to get some precision and clarity. You can probably get this higher as well, you know, sacrifice a little bit more life, but increase your hit chance, because accuracy is a little bit of a problem in here. I took these nodes, but you know, we're still a little bit lacking unless you perfect roll your dagger or something like that. This dagger is already pretty good that I have in here, but you know, other than that, Ruslauta, Marilyn, but as I've said, for mapping, probably switch to Ungil. Just a ring with Chaos Res and some attributes. You do need the intelligence, so you can make use of, well, of the dagger in this case. The dagger is the highest intelligence requirement on this build, so unless you have a different base, you might not need it, but just, you know, get some stats, get some life, get some Chaos Res. And on the items, just prioritize life and evasion, of course, as you can see here. You know, on the shield, you just need a little bit of block chance, as well as ideally spell block, because otherwise you're going to need to invest a little bit more into, well, maybe like a couple more points into block. So try getting spell block on here as well, and life if you want. Well, life is good, right? So And of course, you can also get suppression from here if you're lucky, right? Might be a little bit more expensive to get all these stats that you want, but you can do that. For the jewels, so I do recommend the massive thread over here, and these are very good nodes. You know, all of these life, some damage, and crit chance. More damage. This gives us strength, which we also need, and more damage, and then also a little bit block over here, a little bit of block. Attack speed is nice. Melee strike range that we're using daggers is also nice. Quick step, some more suppression, right? So we don't really need to invest anything from the items. Not mandatory if you get more suppression from the items, but you know it's 1 point. So, but yeah, don't forget that you can if you got another item with spell suppression, you can drop this point. You lose 6% movement speed, of course, but you can drop this point and get these two because right now this is level 85. I mean 95, and with this and let's say this drop, it would be 96, and you know you can maybe drop like this. This isn't the best value, but it's pretty good. But yeah, we also have elusive, so you know technically we do have a little bit more damage, but this is most likely not happening against bosses because to get elusive you need to crit, and if we crit then that means that the boss isn't on full life, and then our ambush is out. But the boss is bleeding, so we get some bonuses. So you know technically you can there's a little bit more variance in damage on this build, and it's Ruslatha as well with volatility, so there's a bunch of variance in the damage. But overall, this build should be pretty fun for bossing. For mapping, it's it's horrendous probably. We don't have really any clear. You know, ancestral call and +1 from gloves. That's about it. Unless you want to reroute the tree a little bit and maybe like grab, I don't know, some like this or something, because you could potentially use blood stance as well. So you could potentially grab these and have +1 from the mastery, but you would need to drop something, right? But yeah, this is the build. I really wanted to kind of make the character invulnerable, so this is what I came up with. The only downside of this build is the clear, I would say, so you know. But overall, this looks kind of fun. Maybe I'll try playing it as my second character. We'll see. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching, and there's more builds coming. Maybe you guys can choose something for your league start. But honestly, I would probably just start Daughter of a Shabby with whatever you want, because it's gonna be the fastest build out there. But anyway, that is it for today's, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.